At Win Talk Radio, we talk truth so we can take action. And whenever I think of what that means, I really think of the sons of Issachar in 1 Chronicles 12, where it says they understood the times and they knew what they should do. I think right now in our country, most people, they don't understand the times, therefore they don't know what they should do. To really understand the times that we're in is to recognize, number one, that truth is under assault. And because truth is under assault, it impacts our moral compass. Our moral compass is shaken up, it's broken kind of like a snow globe. And ultimately what we see going on is life. There is a complete reckless disregard for human life. When we can kill the unborn to the tune of almost 1 million every single year, that should give every single one of us great pause. And that's not just some people's issue, that is every single one of our issue. Because the most important, inalienable right that we have is the right to life. But it isn't just life that's under assault. Our religious freedom and liberties are under assault. Even when it comes to just the idea of truth, when children are being taught that you can choose your sex, or that there are over 100 different genders, or maybe when our children are being taught about critical race theory and that every single white person is a racist, because this whole idea that racism is everywhere at all times, and that there are those who are oppressed and those that are the oppressors. We need to understand the times and we need to know what to do. You see, that also means that they understood action was required. We have a moral responsibility, a moral obligation to not just talk about it, to not just complain, but to also take action. That's why at WIN, we talk truth so we can all take action.
Welcome to WIN Talk Radio, where you will learn how to talk truth and take action. Hosted by WIN, Women Impacting the Nation. Join your hosts, Sue Trombino, founder and president of WIN, Debbie Healy, public policy advisor for Faith, Family, and Freedom, Carrie Campos, co-founder of Self-Evident Ministry, and Janique Stewart, founder of Love Protects Ministry and speaker with Life Training Institute. For more information about WIN Talk Radio, go to our website at womenimpactingthenation.org. Because remember, when we show up, we win. Well, welcome to another episode of WIN Talk Radio, and we're just really excited that you're here today. My name is Sue Trombino, and I'm the president and founder of Women Impacting the Nation. I have my awesome co-host, Janique Stewart, and also, as you always see us, we're Shy 2, which is Carrie Campos and Debbie Healy, and they will join us on the next time. But we are very, very excited to have Sam Sorbo with us today. And we are just going to hit about 25 subjects in 2 minutes, probably longer than that. But it's just good. Just put your seatbelts on, because we're going to have an incredible time, not only fun with this, but we always talk truth and we take action. And so we're just real excited to have Sam with us. Sam, you know, you just said that you are from LA, you went to Pennsylvania, went to high school there, but then you went to Duke University, where I just kind of blows my mind that you studied biomedical engineering. That you have to be really, really smart for that. But then you went and had a modeling career, went to Hollywood and did some different projects there, different movies, and then that's where you met Kevin Sorbo. And
I actually met Kevin in New Zealand, but yes, it was on a Hollywood project.
Okay, Hollywood
he was
project.
Shooting Hercules, the legendary Journeys.
Okay, all
in
right.
New Zealand.
So we have a power wife here and couple, and I know that you're the wind beneath his wings. I have no doubt about that. But we're just really excited because we want to talk in our couple segments that we have with you. We want to talk about 3 different things, and one is. What really is, I've met you and I've listened to you and watched you, the one thing that's the foundation of you is your faith. And the first time I had met you, it was up in Orlando actually, it was at CNP, and I got the book True Faith. That's up here. You guys have got to go to samsorbo.com, and she's got a plethora of books, which everybody needs to read these because you want to get educated with truth and facts. But your truth, talk about truth, is true faith. And the foundation is your faith and of everything we're doing. But we're going to talk about faith, We're going to talk about your Words for Warriors book, because words matter, and that's what we talk about here. But then also the underground education community. That's what you started, and because you homeschool your children, and that is what the crux of the problems in our country today is, our education. We're not getting educated with truth or facts. It's just, it really is become socialism, communism, Marxism. They're trying to change, really take out what our country was founded on, and what really God has created and wanted us to do is for the parent to teach their children, and not somebody else that has a totally different mindset, ideology to, and then that's how we change America. But so anyway, so welcome to our show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. We're going to cover this in 3 minutes flat.
No. We've got 15 minutes. That was my intro to you. But so tell us a little bit about you, Sam, and about your faith and how you came to that, and just.
So you talk about faith being the foundation, and it very much is the foundation for everybody. For us to think that there are people out there who don't have faith is absurd. Everybody has a faith, a worldview, a religion, if you will. And just because if it's a godless religion, they don't want to call it religion, that doesn't mean that it's not religion. In fact, I want to start a movement to convince the Supreme Court that there is no such thing as a non-religious school. Because every school is indoctrinating children in one theology or another. Right now, the prevailing theology is anti-God. It is pro what we call secular inhumanism. Inhumanism.
And tell the difference in between secular humanism and secular.
No, there isn't one.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Secular
I don't call it humanist because it's not. It's not humanist. It's anti-human. It's the anti-human. And this is what we are in doctrine. And by the way, doctrine is a religious ideology or doctrine, right? So when we use the word they're indoctrinating children, we ought to understand what we mean by that, and really take it to heart. They're not just teaching children, nonsense. They're teaching them a religion that is perhaps different than your religion. So my religion is, of course, the foundation of everything. I don't know how I would wake up in the day if I didn't have faith in God, that the sun would rise the next day, that I love people and people love me, that there's hope in the eternal, that there's forgiveness. All of these things that are foundational in my faith, they inform everything that I do. And so we wrote this book. It's called Embrace. The subtitle is Embracing Adversity to Live in God's Light, because Kevin went through a great deal of hardship actually at the beginning of our marriage. He suffered 3 strokes. And so this book is the sequel to his first book, which was True Strength, talking about how he played a half God on TV, but it was really nearly dying that actually ended up saving his life. And those events sort of pointed him more on a path towards the faith-focused mission that he has right now, which is creating entertainment that informs people on faith, right? And their ability, it's accessible to everybody. And it is such a blessing that we want everybody to have it, to be able to partake in it. And it's that, and it's free, which is, just an added bonus, doesn't cost anything. So we wrote this book as the follow-up to that, to share how faith has impacted our marriage. We are very pro-marriage, and it's not an easy institution. It's a tough slog to be in a relationship long-term with the same person, but it's absolutely doable, and you simply have to approach it with an idea of forgiveness, which is, of course, the foundation of our faith. And so in that way, our faith informs everything that we do. So
because you talked about worldview, and everybody has a worldview.
Yes.
It's either biblical or pagan. And I believe that unfortunately the Christian community has compartmentalized their biblical worldview, and we kind of do things not in God's way, but what we want. And then people don't really know what words mean. They don't really understand, well, what does that really mean? what does that mean to you? That's why we were just talking about questions. And we love to ask questions here at WIN and say, somebody will say something, I'll go, wow, that's really interesting. Where did you get that from? Or what does that mean to you? Because the definition has just so changed. I mean, they're even changing in the Webster's Dictionary the definition of woman. And I'm like,
sure, they're redefining
everything.
Because I believe that part of that is because there is an all-out attack or assault on truth. So if we drift away from truth, then essentially what we're dealing with is moral relativism. And to you, one word means something, to you it means something completely different. But we're using the same words, but because of linguistic theft, we have to be very intentional to define words and to ask people, what do you mean by that?
That's right. That's why I wrote the book,
Yes.
Words for
So
Warriors.
see how we go
And
right
yeah,
into
it's
that.
amazing. You're just amazing at that. And
But
I
can-
just want to point out,
And also, just for the viewers, it is Words for Warriors fight back against crazy socialists and the toxic liberal left.
Other than that, I don't have an opinion. Because when you confuse the word, you're wreaking chaos, and that's crazy. You're
Yes.
inducing, and look what we're doing to children in school. We're actually inducing, forms of mental problems in our kids, and that's crazy. That's lunacy. So
Well,
I
first of
just
all,
want to point out.
chaos is not of the Lord. If it's chaotic, that's
Right.
not God.
Because he is a God of order.
He's a God of
Amen.
order, and it's what they're doing is they're trying to take out the lines of I-95 out and expect there not to be chaos.
Right.
Right? Because within the rules there is
Right.
more freedom.
Right.
But so
Within the rules, there's more
freedom.
Yeah. So this book is dedicated to the Word,
Nice.
because the Word was with God,
Yes.
and the Word was God. And so we have to understand on a spiritual level, the attack on words is an attack on God.
Yes.
very good.
It's sadly, it's that simple. And so once we start to understand that, then we start to be a little bit more careful with our words. So they just redefined the word recession. So apparently the recession is self-identifying as, not a recession or something. It's ridiculous.
It's silly.
They've redefined, the one that I love to point out to people, because I'm very much in education, because I feel very strongly that we ought to be protecting our children from the child abuse that's happening in our schools. And a lot of what's happening in our schools is child abuse.
Please give us examples of that or expound on what you mean by child abuse.
I will in just a minute. I want to talk about the fact that in Ohio, the definition of proficient is 38%. Okay. Now, none of us feel like if you score 38% on a test, that you are proficient. But they just redefined it so that they could tell parents that they have 100% proficiency, which means a 38% across the board, and they can get away with that. Or the governor of Oregon signing into law that you don't need to know how to read
and write.
or do math to graduate high school. Well, then what does a diploma mean anymore? So we're going to redefine the word diploma to be, you passed your gender studies exam, right? I mean, that's what that is. So child abuse in the schools. They are advocating that young children change their gender. They are equipping young people to go and have surgical procedures without telling their parents. That's child abuse.
Yes.
And there are many, just the idea that they are teaching these children lies. For instance, I think it's child abuse to teach a child that there's no reason that they're here, that it's purely accidental, evolution, and they just and by the way, that the law of the land, Darwinism, is survival of the fittest, because that's bullying. And I think it's child abuse to teach a child that bullying is the way of the world. Oh, but don't bully. I think that's sending a mixed message. It's reaping confusion in the child, and it's a terrible thing to do. You look confused.
No, I'm actually going to, I agree completely with you, but I also think we have to then think, what is the fruit of that belief system?
Yeah, it's
of
violence.
bullying. Yes, so I think
course.
people shouldn't be surprised with all these school
No,
shootings.
that's what I say.
When that is the fruit of what they're being taught.
I think it's child abuse to have a child go through a metal detector to get into school. I think it's child abuse to keep children behind, basically fencing and prison walls. And I understand that it's for their protection, but I still think it's abusive to a young child to have them live in that environment.
But is it really for their protection? What does that mean? What does their protection mean? Because again, you are indoctrinating in a certain way.
Right,
and now you're
protection
teaching-
from what?
From what?
Yeah.
What are you protecting?
But you're not protecting them from these very nefarious thoughts
Ideas, yeah.
and ideas that will mess them up for the rest of their lives. I think it's child abuse to teach a child that their highest worth is how much money they make. And that is the highest worth in our education system today. And I should say education system, in our school system today. The highest worth is college prep and career readiness. Well, that just evolved. Why career readiness? What is that? That's, get a good career and make a lot of money, right? And by the way, they're not doing that. They're not accomplishing that. But then what is college prep? Oh, you have to go to college to get a good career, to make a lot of money. And then these kids grow up, they've been deprived of any ideas of spirituality, any essence of God, because they're given world religions, but they're all the same, and nobody really believes them unless they're weak people, because religion is a crutch, right? Never mind that that's a huge lie. But and then they grow up, and they do everything that they've been taught to do because they've been conditioned, they've been trained to do this. And they get there, and maybe they have grabbed the brass ring. Maybe they did arrive, and they've made a ton of money. But they're still
then what?
unhappy
Yep, well,
because
then
they have
what?
no spiritual life. And you know what? They've been inured against it. They've been conditioned to never turn that way. But they do go to, the pharmaceuticals, or they buy a Ferrari, or they get a new wife, or a better looking pool boy.
Yeah.
Right?
Let me ask you this question, and maybe you can answer when we return from our break. But where did the education system go wrong? Is it the system upon which the education system is now founded, or is it just the schools? I'd really like you to answer that.
Is
maybe
there
when
a
we
way
come
to
back.
save it?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I want to, when we come back to the next segment, I want to start with that. But there was a couple things you said, about evolution. And it's amazing because, I think when people go down that road of Darwinism and all that, I just say, wow, I'm so impressed with your faith. I said this to a man that had that Darwin thing, that fish thing, which drives me crazy. But I said, wow, I'm so impressed with your faith, because it takes more faith to believe we just poofed here
Oh, yeah, exactly.
than it was that we were created.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but everything they're teaching our kids, it's a complete opposite of what is right and what is true and what is noble. But we talked about being a ruse, but it's intentional. And
Yes.
why is a silent majority? As a parent, I think because society is teaching us, like, oh my gosh, you got to be your child's friend. You got to be. I said, no.
I have the answer for
Yeah,
that too.
Yeah, so we are so excited to come back for that, because I really want to touch the next time of everything you've been doing with the underground education, Sam, and then also with the sex, what's happening in the schools, because I was watching your segment online about, the statistics are staggering of how many teachers and aides have been really, they're been arrested for sexual molestation.
One
this
every
stuff.
day.
It's incredible. So anyway, so we're just really, really excited to come back to our next segment with Sam Sorbo, and we'll be right back.
Here at Win Talk Radio, our heart is to encourage people and give them hope. As Christians and conservatives, we spend so much time focusing on the negative and what the left is doing and what the Democrats are doing, when the reality is God is moving powerfully, and we see it everywhere we go. He's waking up people, opening their eyes to the truth. And so the very reason, or the very thing that we see as a negative, that the media is not showing us the positive, positive proves that we are winning the day. And so we just want to encourage you to take a stand, take a fight, speak boldly, because people are listening and God is opening eyes. And so the reality is when we show up, we win, and God will win the day through his people when we do it together in unity.
Well, welcome back to our Win Talk Radio, and we are having an incredible conversation with Sam Sorbo, and we want to continue with our education. And I know, Janique, you had asked, there was two questions that we were talking about, is you had asked about where did we go wrong? Where did the education go wrong? And then the other, after you've answered that, after 30 minutes, then we will then we'll go on to the sex abuse that is happening in the schools, with our children.
Yeah.
And so parents, pay attention. You are going to be held accountable. That's the greatest gift that God has given you is children. And either take your kids out of school or find a school
And
that
I
you
have
know what your
solutions.
teachings. And
I
Sam
have
does. So
solutions.
let's talk about
So
that.
luckily, the answer to your question is very simple. It never should have happened, because when you systematize education or indoctrination, you're going to run into struggles. And the Bible's very clear on this. The Bible charges the parents with the education of the child. Twice it charges the grandparents. And never does it say, allow the state to raise your child, allow the government to teach your children, allow the church to teach your children. Never.
Excellent point.
So at this point, I don't even advocate that your kids go to kids' church. Teach them how to sit in church.
Okay.
They ought to understand how to sit in church. And they can be trained. This is what we've lost sight of. Because at this point, I went to school full-time. So I saw my mother evenings, right? We saw our parents in the evening. They saw their parents in the evenings. Their parents saw their grandparents in the evening, and so on and so forth. Generationally, we have become largely unparented. And so at this point, we don't even know how to parent, much less teach our own children. The remedy for that is very, very simple. It's just not that hard. But the educators, the anointed, they tell us, don't try this at home. We are specially anointed. We've gone to school. We've studied methodologies. What's great is we are coming through this culture now of trust the expert, and we're learning that those experts, not so trustworthy.
That's right.
Right? And so it's going to be the breakdown of the entire system.
Sure.
And I'm hoping sooner rather than later. But I will say, as encouragement, Harvard and Stanford and Yale, they're all looking to recruit homeschooled kids. Because when you homeschool your child, and I don't even call it homeschooling anymore, but let that lie for a minute. When you homeschool your child, you're teaching them outside the box. And they learn to be resourceful, and they don't lose their creativity, which of course is squashed the minute that they enter school. So children start out asking, I think it's like 28 questions an hour. Why? What's that for? Why is that there? Why is it green? Right? That's how they start life. They have questions. And what are they taught in school? Sit down and shut up. Wait till the teacher calls on you. No, this isn't question time right now. No, you can't go to the bathroom. You have to wait. No, it's not your turn. And so by the age of, by 2 years later, they're down to 2 questions an hour. And then pretty soon it's no questions. And the only question that they end up asking in class is, teacher, will this be on the exam? In other words, what do I have to memorize in order to pass the test?
Sure.
Which is not learning. In fact, I've said it now too much. What we have in our schools is not education. It's the opposite of education. It's anti-education. It's teaching children not to learn anything ever again. That's what it does. And the proof for that, there's, to be brief, because I know we're on limited time, the proof for that is, what's the first thing you learn when you go to school and you want to ask a question? What do you have to do?
You have to raise your hand.
Got to raise your hand. And this is a visceral lesson. You're learning it. You're embodying the lesson. You're learning this lesson. But what is this lesson? I have to draw attention to myself. A lot of kids don't want to do that. I have to ask permission. Can I please learn now? I have to compartmentalize learning. It only happens on the teacher's time, not your schedule. You don't just get to willy-nilly ask questions. And then finally, teacher knows everything. Well, that's just trust the expert. That's why we're living through this period right now, is because we were all taught, trained to trust the expert. But ultimately, this lesson is don't ask. That's what this lesson is. And that is the opposite of education. Because education is a quest for knowledge, at the very least. Starts with a question. The first thing you learn in school is don't question. That's not education. Now, the simple solution, because you brought up underground education, is this online community that I've developed, and I have trainings for parents on what we mean when we're talking about home learning your children, or whole. I'm actually thinking about morphing it to whole learning, because it's the whole child that you're teaching, not just their brain. It's very important that we understand this, to distinguish between feeding data into a brain like computer chip, the way we treat children in our schools today, and training a child in the way he should go. It's a completely different paradigm. And so the struggle that parents have is they take the kid out of school, or they contemplate, they go, but then what? What am I supposed to do with him? Well, you only think that you're supposed to do with him because you went to school and you were taught that education comes in a box and it looks like this, and you have to check off boxes and you have to cross things out and you have to, dot your I's and cross your T's. That's not education. What's happening in school is not education. So if I can get you off of this, I know what education is, to this idea of opening your mind and understanding that your child is innately gifted by God, that your child is curious about everything. And all you need to do is stoke the curiosity, point him in the right direction, give him a couple of books, he will teach himself. Well, he won't teach himself to read. No, that's true. But you taught your child how to tie his shoes, you taught him how to use a knife and fork, you can teach him how to read. And there's a ton of books out there that will show you how to teach your child how to read. You can get this whole bandwagon started and then basically set him free. Now, are you going to provide certain learning materials for him? Absolutely.
Of course.
But the parents say, well, I can't teach math. I don't have a math brain. First of all, math brain is a complete lie. There is no such. There's not a French brain. There's not a social studies brain. There's not a reading brain, right? There's not a math brain. So the idea of that is, if you're out of your depth with something, that's not a problem. First of all, you'd be willing to admit it to your child, that you're not the expert in everything that ever existed, right? That's showing some humility and training them in that, right? And you're teaching them that if they want to know something, by golly, they better get busy and go learn it, right?
Figure it out.
And then you just show them that all the answers are in the books. And if the answers aren't in the books, then maybe they need to write a book.
Can you tell us how you came to view it this way? Yes. Because I love your byline on this book, They're Your Kids, an inspirational journey from self-doubter to homeschool advocate, or I think you also refer to yourself as an educational freedom advocate. So please tell us, how did you come to this knowledge? Because obviously it's very different than what we are seeing. So please kind of tell us that journey.
It took me over 10 years. I mean, I've only now in a sense, blossomed into this understanding that oh my gosh, the whole system's wrong? Are you kidding me? Because I had bought in. And I'll tell you, there are a couple of crucial moments. I'll tell you a quick story. I started home educating, and I did exactly what the school would have done, and it was fine, but it's a failed paradigm. What happened was I found a great curriculum for home learning that worked really well for us, and so that worked really well for my two boys. My oldest wants to be an actor. I know what that is. I've got that covered. I can teach that. My second one wants to be an engineer. I actually got that covered. I can teach that. My third one's an artist. She's an incredible artist. And from the age of 5, she was up in her room drawing for hours a day. For hours a day. Like she's got it in spades. And I hit my knees when she was about 11. And I prayed. I said, God, I think you made a mistake, because the first one I got covered. The second one's no problem. This one, though, how can I teach that? I can't teach that. She's got such gifts that I can't touch them. And it's crazy to me because, I'm smart, you know what I mean? But I don't know what to do with that. And I started asking people, what do you do with an art brain? And somebody said to me, well, anatomy, like for artists, anatomy. And I'm like, yes, I'll find her an anatomy teacher. So I ran upstairs to Tavy's room. I think she was 11. I said, Annette, we'll find you an anatomy class, okay? She goes, oh, Mom. She picks up her sketchbook and she shows me a double-page spread of drawings in various extensions of the interior of the human knee. She's already teaching herself it. She knows she needs to know anatomy. She knew it. How did she know it? Because she's innately gifted with the curiosity that God gave her for the things that fascinate her. And that's, so I want people who believe in God to trust their faith is true and trust that God is there. And if God created that child, God knows how to guide that child. And you just butt the heck out of the way. Like, yes, you're entrusted with that child, but you have to trust that God knows what he's doing, right? And we're so distrustful of God. I mean, I admit it, me too. Like, I hit my knees, I'm like, God, no, this one you screwed up because I can't do this.
Wow.
Right? And there are a lot of parents out there saying, we can't do this. But they're saying we can't do this because they're convinced that the school taught them. You were not educated, you were trained. And if you really think hard about it, all the stuff that you really know probably came after you finished school, or a good portion of it. And in that much, like I say that the school's core competency these days is teaching us what we don't know. Is not teaching us the stuff that we don't know, it's teaching us how incompetent we are. And so most people's default is, I don't know. I can't do that. Nobody ever taught me how to do that.
Sure.
Right?
And figure it out. I mean, but they haven't been taught to go. I used to say to my son, "Honey, how do I do this?" I go,
Right.
"You know what, honey? I really don't know, but why don't you figure it out?"
Right.
Or But you said one thing about when kids are raising their hand, but it also teaches that if you raise your hand, you ask the question, and either the teacher doesn't know it, and they'll say, or they'll either ignore you, or they kind of make you feel stupid because you didn't know something. What does that do? Don't ask the question.
That's right.
Don't anything.
It's
and
all
they just
oppression.
dumb down. And we
that's
have
partly
become
why-
so dumbed down.
That's partly why I say it's child abuse, because it's so wrong. The whole system is so wrong for children
Sure.
that, I know that it's an extreme thing to say, but here's the thing, people say, but there's a lot of good things that happen in school, like sports or socialization or whatever. Like they come up with these good things. I go, okay, how much child abuse is acceptable? It's that simple. It's like, and I'm going to be, this is rude.
We talk truth here,
Yeah.
whatever you feel. You be yourself.
Dad's abusing the kids. Okay, but mom's really loving and she really loves them and she's doing a really good job with them. Do you remove the children from the house or not? How much child abuse is acceptable to you? And I will tell you, some of the things that are happening to young children in school are so abusive and they fetter them for the rest of their lives. Sweetie, you don't understand math. You just don't have a math brain. That is child abuse. That is, and I know people today who are walking around with whatever they were fed by the one teacher. All the other teachers were fabulous, but that one teacher, man, that one negative thing, that you're too fat or you're too skinny or you're too blonde or you're too
you're
whatever,
not smart enough.
right? That one thing will color that child's life. They're so innocent. They're so susceptible. Get them out of that environment. If you do nothing with your children, they're better off. Because even a little bit of child abuse. Look, Jesus said, let a millstone be tied around his neck before he lets one of my children fall. I mean, it's that simple. And yet we've been so conditioned that parents will come up with excuses to send their children to school. Oh, well, I know they're not doing education, Sam, but what about socialization? I'm sorry, get your priorities straight. You want you want your child to know a lot of kids?
That's the biggest thing that I found when we homeschooled our son. It was like, well, what about socializing? And I would say, I mean, now I can say, I just found people. I figured it out. We just did things as our family.
Here's the thing. Socialization does not happen in schools. Children do not learn manners. They don't learn social skills from other children. But everybody can go to samsorbo.com, Find underground education, join it. It's free. You can have conversations with people. I've got moderators on there that can help, and I'm on there all the time, just helping people navigate this. You can do this. You need to do it. And what people don't understand is your child was given to you as a gift. Your child is a blessing. If you choose to walk in God's path for you and your child, you will come out of it a better person, as will your child. So you can do this. Just go to samsorbo.com. All my books are there. All the training is there. I've done a ton of videos on socialization. I will answer that question.
That's great.
Convincingly.
Sure.
I just want to save the kids, man.
Yeah, and I know we have to, I know we're getting ready to go to a break, but when we come back, I know we'll continue to delve even deeper, because Sue actually touched on, talking about this abuse even further. And I want to hear what you have to say about how they're arresting even some pedophiles in the schools.
Yes.
I mean, sadly, which,
yes.
You wouldn't
One
really
is too
think
many.
that, of course, but I definitely want to come back and talk about that in this next segment.
Okay, well, we will be right back with Sam and Janique, and we're just really excited to continue to learn. And anyway, we'll be right back.
Here at Win Talk Radio, as Judeo-Christians in America, we have three choices. We can either fight, we can support the fighters, or we can do nothing. We encourage you all, take a stand today.
Okay, well, welcome back again to our Win Talk Radio, and we are here with Sam Sorbo, and you can get Sam's all her information at samsorbo.com, and obviously you can go to womenimpactingthenation.org. We will have all of this on our website and all of the other tech things that we have that I have no clue about. But anyway, we're just really excited to have Sam again. We're talking about the children, which is the most important thing that we can talk about, because they are our future. But Janique, you were asking Sam about the abuse, and then when you answer that question about the abuse that's happening in our schools, let's talk about saving our nation. And as we're coincidentally, we're on our tour called Saving Our Republic, Ensuring Liberty, and we can end with that. And
Please tell us more about. We've been talking about the abuse, but I think sometimes parents don't fully understand.
No.
What does that mean? What does that look like? What actually is happening in the school?
Parents are under this weird misapprehension that it's not their school. And that's wrong, because it's in all the books. It's in all the books. The grooming is happening in the books. I just saw another video of a principal saying, I read this book and I really recommend it. It's called Jack, Not Jackie, about a transgender child for kindergartners, okay? It's in the books. And if you think that your child isn't seeing that, by the way, it's on all the TV, all the cartoon shows.
Yes, it sure
you
is.
think that it's a cartoon and therefore it's appropriate for children. It's not. Your children should only be watching, I'm just gonna say this, only go back to old stuff. And start there,
Leave it to
right?
Beaver.
And by the way, like, the less electronics, the better. I really advocate for no electronics for young children. They should learn to use their imaginations.
Absolutely.
They can learn to play in the rocks and pretend that it's dinosaurs. Like, they can do that. But we are so, we apply our own limitations as adults. We apply them on the child. Oh, he can't memorize all the presidents because, I would never be able to do. No, he can memorize all the presidents and their wives' names and the dates that they served. He can do that. And the state that they came from. Your children can memorize a lot of stuff.
Sure.
And they can memorize good stuff, because if they don't, they're going to memorize TV commercials. Or, I know I memorized a ton of TV commercial jingles when I was growing up. In fact, I had somebody say to me the other day, you can have it your way. I bet you don't remember where that one's from.
Oh yes, that's Burger King.
that Burger
Okay,
King?
I said it's Burger King, and he said, no, it's McDonald's.
Oh, that's
and
right.
Then
it was
he
Burger King?
sang it. And he realized he was singing the
I was gonna
Burger
say it was
King
the Burger
jingle.
King, that's what
I
I
said,
thought,
that's
yeah.
okay, I'm not good enough that I could sing it, but I did know that it was Burger King. And he said,
Or
well, it
hold the
just
lettuce
shows you.
and the pickles and the
And the-
lettuce,
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. anyway, I said, you know, I didn't remember the jingle, but and then he said, but I guess I don't remember any of the important stuff. Okay, now listen. What does he mean by important stuff? You always ask, like, what do you mean by that? What is the important stuff? And of course, to him, the important stuff is the stuff that he was given in school. How important was it? Well, clearly it wasn't important to him. And clearly it's not important to him today. And he's a successful businessman. So, is it really important? But he still thinks of it as being important because he went to school and they taught him that it was important. Clearly that's a lie.
True.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So we have to go and impeach, and this is a hard thing to do. We have to impeach everything that we were taught. Everything. Not, you know, oh, germs or you wash your hands. Not that stuff, but just the general rules of what we were taught. The rules. We were taught that rules apply. Do you have to graduate high school to go to college?
Today,
No.
that's what they say.
But you don't. Do you have to graduate college to go to med school or law school? No. But we think that there's a rule. Where did you learn that rule? I don't know. I just, right? We have to impeach all of that because there's a training that's happened in the schools, and it started ages ago. It started 50 plus years ago. It started 100 years ago. And it's the training people to believe that the government has all the answers. It is anti-American. And so that's the big nut that we have to crack. And we can do it with this new generation because we can bring them up in freedom. That's why I call it the underground education, right? I'm emancipating people from the school injuries that they've suffered.
Sure.
And freeing them to understand that they are created by God, endowed by their creator with inalienable rights, right? And among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? And so we want our children to learn that. And they won't learn that in school.
True.
They will learn really bad things in school. For instance, I think we were talking earlier, gun control, right? Oh, there's a big fight for gun control. I hate to break it to you, but we've already lost that battle. Because the young people in school are being taught that if they bite their Pop-Tart into the shape of a gun, or if they bring in a little G.I. Joe 2-inch gun, or if they do this with their fingers, or if they draw a gun on a piece of paper, they will be suspended. That's not punishment for the child, that's punishment for the parent. So the parent teaches the child, you never ever touch a gun. There's your gun control right there. That's it. They won't even need laws. People will refuse to arm themselves. Are you hearing me? This is danger. This is a danger. How do we save it? How do we turn this around? Keep those kids out of those indoctrination centers. Even if they don't learn anything, teach them a trade. But teach them freedom, liberty.
Well, going back to, because I mean, years and years ago, kids would go to school in their trucks, have their guns in the, you know, right there on the rifles there, because they were going to go hunting afterwards. But again, this is, and we're talking about saving America. This is, people have to get back to the foundation. To me, the two foundations, the most important, is the Constitution of the United States, which is the only document in the whole world that really gives us that freedom. And you've lived, you know, you've been all over the world. I've lived all over the world. Janika's, you know, from Europe. And we understand that they're oppressive there. That's why everybody wants to come to America.
Yes.
The Constitution, but we're dumbing down that Constitution. It's done on purpose. And then, of course, our biblical, if you're a Christian, our biblical principles.
Well, of course, the biblical principles underpin the Constitution. So they're very busy wiping out the Bible right now, taking it off the,
Well, it's all done on
getting
purpose.
rid of, right? And then they'll be able to crack the Constitution. But the good news is, it doesn't take a majority. Don't worry about that. It takes a strong minority with conviction. And here's what's great. What was the revolution? John Adams asked this of Thomas Jefferson. And he said, what was the American Revolution? And don't answer it was the war, because it wasn't the war. It was the 15 years that led up to the war. And those 15 years ushered in a change in the way we think about freedom and tyranny. And what happened was the American mind changed the way it thought and it said, okay, we don't want a king because a king can act capriciously, but we can self-govern. We can form a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And so they did. It took a revolution to get out from under the tyrannical king. Today, we have a revolution again. It's in the minds of the American people, and they are waking up because of all of the transgressions that are happening in our schools. They are waking up to the tyranny of the American modern education system, the modern school system, and they will rise up and come out from under that. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be a bloody revolution. I don't think it will. I think we will see the collapse of the school system, and we will see the return to family, because the schools have robbed parents of their children, children from their parents. They've made parents complicit in this grand larceny, and they've robbed the culture of the family.
Wow.
Well, what's really awesome what you're saying is that that's everything that Wynn has talked about.
Sure.
And it's become personal.
That's why we're
And
friends.
Yes, but it's become personal. And I've got Jerry telling me
We
I've
should
got
be
a couple
taking it
minutes.
personal.
But this is until it becomes personal, people are not engaged.
Fair enough.
Right? And so it's like that's why we ask the questions. What's important to you? Once we ask that, and I think that's what's happening with America. And I've always said, you know what? America's going to wake up. Because we're in a bubble. America's been in a bubble, and we think that's not going to happen here. This is America.
Nope.
I said,
it's here.
but if you continue, and I've got 1 minute here, if you continue to become apathetic, disengaged, disinterested, and you lose America, where do you go from here?
Yeah.
Everybody in the world wants to come here. So wake up, get educated with truth and facts, not emotion, not conjecture, and really not even our opinions. We're all entitled to our opinion, right? We're just not entitled to our own facts. But so people are waking up because it's become personal. The pandemic was really a God thing because all of a sudden parents went, what the heck just happened? And we're going to continue to, I believe that we're going to save this republic.
Yes.
And on the back of our cards, we always talk about 1256-1. There
But
was
not only
only
that,
12 disciples.
We will save it, and it will save us.
That's awesome. That's it.
The reciprocal equation that God has for us with our children. Is we save them, they save us. The relationship that you can have with your children is amazing if you don't allow the schools to steal it. And the relationship we can have with this republic is amazing if we don't allow the schools to teach us differently.
Sure. Well, you know, with Wynn, we like to always, obviously, we talk truth so we can take action, but we always like to end with how do they take action? So if you're looking at the audience right now, speaking to those parents, what are some action steps they can take so that we can save our nation?
Well, so it's speaking directly to parents, get your kids out of the schools. Just full stop. That's it. And I can show you how. I can show you sort of best practices. And I can also set you free from many of the shackles that have been placed on you by public education, by the schools that you went to, right? Because you don't have to labor under those fetters anymore. And so that's, if you're grandparents, there are ways to get some of this, to infuse some of this into the grandkids, or if you have the ability to take on the education of your grandchildren, I highly encourage you to do it. You will have a relationship with those grandchildren that beats any relationship in your life. I mean, I just think it's such a love affair that parents can have with their children, and they miss out. Parents have no idea what they're sacrificing when they turn their children over to foreign entities for their upbringing, and that's really what this is. And so I've got a ton of resources for people, and the whole community is a resource, and of course the books are resources, but videos and everything. It's not as difficult as they teach you that it is, and it's so much more rewarding than you could ever dream. And you know, I discovered the secret sauce. My relationship with my kids astonishes me that I have this. It's such a gift. I don't know what I did to earn it, but I'm so glad that I did, you know. So yeah.
Well, it all starts with your faith in God, and if you have your faith in God, then things can go. And then the legacy, and your legacy that you're leaving your children is just unmeasurable. And that's what we really want to do, is leave that legacy. What is your legacy going to be with your children, or just in your home, even if you don't have children? What is your legacy going to be? And we just ask that you continue to watch womenimpactingthenation.org. Go to 844-946-8255. Go to our Win Talk Radio, and you can watch this over and over again and listen to Sam. Go to samsorbo.com. And there's a plethora of things out there. We're all in the same boat. Sometimes you can row harder than we can. Sometimes we can row harder than you. But we need to save this republic, because in a handful of months, if we don't, we will lose this republic. And I ask you, where do you go from here? But anyway, when we show up, we win. And so we are just really excited that you came to us today and just watched our segment with Sam. And I thank Janique for always being here with us. And again, just remember, when we show up, we win. And we'll see you on the next segment of Win Talk Radio. God bless you. Thank you for joining us at Win Talk Radio. For more information, contact us at womenimpactingthenation.org for questions, suggestions, or for more information, call us at 844-946-8255. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Win Talk Radio. And remember, when we show up, we win.